What does it really take to build a €1 million retirement plan in Ireland? Most people think it's impossible without winning the lotto or taking major gambles. But the truth is, with the right systems, €1 million is completely achievable. And in this video, I'm going to break down the exact framework that you can copy. We'll cover how much you actually need to save, the Irish tax breaks that make it faster, how compounding accelerates your timeline, and how to structure your money so it works for you, not against you. €1 million sounds like a lot, and for most people, well, it is. But in retirement planning, it doesn't always stretch as far as you think. Why? Well, simply we're living longer. Many people will spend 25 to 35 years in retirement. Remember, costs are continually rising, and the state pension may not keep pace with inflation. And because in later life, it isn't just about covering bills, it's about enjoying the years that you've worked so hard for. Let's make this real with an example. Meet Fiona and Barry Murphy. They're both 60 and they want to retire at 65. At that point, they're projected to have €1 million in their pensions. They can take a tax-free lump sum of €200,000 and they decide to use €150,000 of it to help their two daughters buy their first homes. That leaves €850,000 inside their pension. They plan to spend €64,000 a year in retirement. Now, if they live to 95, a realistic life expectancy, their pensions would still have about €345,000 left. That's around €122,000 in today's money after adjusting for inflation. And the balance, well, that will form part of their estate that will go to their family. Now compare that to relying only on the state pension. So remember, today the state pension is $15,000 per year per person. So that's around €30,000 per year for a couple. That's not even half of what Barry and Fiona target spending. And if the state pension doesn't keep pace with rising costs, the gap only gets bigger. This is the real point. A bigger pot doesn't just cover your bills, it gives you freedom. Freedom to travel more in the early years when you're active in your retirement. Freedom to stay in your own home rather than relying on a nursing home if your healthcare changes later in life. Freedom to support your kids or even your grandkids when they need help. So €1 million just doesn't make Barry and Fiona rich. It gives them choice, control, and security. That is the freedom to live retirement on their own terms. The first step to building a €1 million pot is your savings engine. Now, in the FIRE world, that is financial independence, retire early, they often use very strict rules for spending and saving. I don't follow FIRE, but I do like to borrow what works. And one of the best rules that I've come across is from Money with Kate. I've taken her spending rule and tweaked it slightly to make it more realistic for high earners here in Ireland. Here's the problem it solves. People often say things like, spend less than you earn. Well, that sounds like good advice, but it doesn't actually give you much guidance. Spending €97,000 when you make $100,000 net isn't going to take you very far. And for those who've been diligent savers, and when they get a pay rise, they ask the question, can I afford to spend more or am I being irresponsible? This rule gives you a test. It makes sure your assets, not just your income, justifies your spending. Assets here refer to liquid investable assets, so anything in your brokerage or your cash savings. Importantly, it does not include illiquid assets like your home or any rental properties. Here's how I use it. So you take your after-tax income plus 4% of your liquid assets. You then divide that by 1.75. That gives you a reasonable annual spend. And what's left over becomes your savings engine. Now, let's look at an example. 100,000 gross income, so approximately 60,000 after tax. There is €200,000 in invested liquid assets, so 4% of that is €8,000. The sum of both is 68,000. When you divide that by 1.75, you get €39,000 for spending, and that leaves 21,000 for savings and investing each year. Here is the point. The exact number isn't as important as what it shows you. The spending rule gives you a framework, but it's your savings rate that determines how quickly you will reach €1 million. Say you save $15,000 a year at 6%, it'll take you 30 years to hit 1 million. You save $30,000 a year, you get there in 20. Push it to $40,000 a year, you get there in 18. That is your savings engine in action. The more fuel you add, the faster you get to financial freedom. The second step in building a €1 million pot is making the most of tax efficiency. And this is where Irish investors actually have a huge advantage because the government essentially gives you powerful incentives to save for retirement through pensions. When you put your money into a pension, you're not just saving, you're saving with tax relief. At the higher rate, every €1,000 you contribute only costs you €600. That's a 40% boost before you even invested a cent. Let's look at a real-world example. Say you're a higher rate taxpayer. You contribute 10,000 gross to your pension. That only costs you 6,000 euro net after tax relief. Inside that pension, the full 10,000 euro is invested and grows tax-free. Now, let's compare that to putting 6,000 euro in a regular investment account. Over 20 years, it's 6%. In the pension, your 10,000 euro grows to about 34,000 euro. Outside the pension, your 6,000 grows to about 20,000 euro. And that's before you pay exit tax or capital gains on the investment. So there is a huge difference. Both options cost you 6,000 out of pocket, but in the pension, you end up almost 70% more after 20 years. And if your employer offers matching contributions on your pensions, that is free money. A 5% match is a 100% return instantly. If you don't take it, you're leaving money on the table. This is why pensions are the rocket fuel on your journey to 1 million euro. They give you a tax relief on the way in. There's tax-free compounding inside, a portion can be drawn down tax-free, and you potentially have lower tax rates when you withdraw. Now, an important caveat with pensions in Ireland: you just can't shovel unlimited money in because revenue sets age-restricted contribution limits. These cap the percentage of your income that qualifies for tax relief. Think of it this way: the older you are, the bigger the slice of your income that you can put into your pension, from 15% in your 20s to 40% in your 60s. But remember, it's always capped at a maximum income of 115,000 euro. So for example, if you're 42 and you earn 100,000 euro, the most that you can contribute for tax relief is 25% or 25,000 euro. If you're 50 and you earn 120,000 euro, the cap is 30% of 115,000 euro or 34,500. Once you've hit that ceiling, any extra contributions won't qualify for tax relief. So what do you do with surplus savings? You keep saving, but based on your risk profile, you direct it into other investment vehicles. That could be a taxable ETF, a mutual fund, or property. But here's the key. If you're investing outside your pension, especially in shares or ETFs, you'll need to actively taper your risk as you approach retirement. Most pension funds now use target date strategies. They automatically reduce your equity exposure the closer you get to retirement. If you're investing your own money, you don't get that built-in safety net, so you will have to do it yourself, gradually shifting into a more conservative mix over time. The message here is simple: pensions are rocket fuel, but once you've maxed them out, don't stop saving. Just make sure how you invest reflects your risk profile and your time horizon. This third step in building a 1 million euro pot is making sure that your money actually grows, because saving alone won't get you there. If you leave your money sitting in cash, inflation quietly eats away at it. In Ireland, where households hold over 163 billion euro in cash deposits, even when today's slightly higher deposit rates, most savers are still losing purchasing power. Let me show you the difference. Say you save 30,000 euro each year for 25 years. If you put it into cash earning 1% interest, you end up with about 840,000 euro. That doesn't even reach 1 million euro, and after you account for 2% inflation, it would be about 520,000 euro in today's money. But if you invest the same 30,000 euro each year into a diversified portfolio earning 7% net of fees, which is conservative by long-term historical standards, after 25 years, you'll have about 1.9 million euro. That is more than double. And the only difference is the compounding rate. Here's what happens. Compounding is when your money earns a return, and then those returns themselves start earning returns. It's exponential growth. In the early years, the curve looks pretty flat, and then the longer you stick with it, the steeper and steeper and steeper it gets. So for example, after 5 years of saving 30,000 euro at 7%, you have about 175,000 euro. After 10 years, you have about 414,000. After 20 years, roughly 1.2. By 25 years, 1.9 million euro. Do you notice the pattern? It takes 10 years just to cross the 400,000 euro mark, but then in the next 15 years, you add another 1.5 million euro. That is a snowball effect in action. And this is why the two keys are: number one, consistency, keep adding fuel every year, and two, patience. Don't interrupt compounding by pulling out money when the markets wobble. Because if you panic and sell after a dip, you reset the curve, you lose time, and in compounding, time is the most powerful ingredient. So yes, your savings rate gets you started, but investing is what makes 1 million euro achievable in your lifetime. Now, there's one more thing that quietly slows your journey to 1 million euro, and that is fees. Even small differences compound over time in reverse. Let's go back to our 30,000 euro a year saver. A 7% net return after 25 years bills 1.9 million euro. But if we knock off 1% for higher fees, so the net return becomes 6%, the final pot looks closer to 1.6 million euro. That is 300,000 euro gone, not because of bad investing, but purely because of the drag of fees. And here's the Irish twist. Some pension funds here still charge over 1.5% in annual management charges. On a 500,000 euro pension pot, that is 7,500 euro every single year. With a low-cost fund, you may pay under 1,000 euro. Over decades, that gap is staggering. So here's a rule of thumb on fees. It's not a neat straight line because compounding is exponential, not linear. But the longer you save, the bigger the drag from just a 1% in annual fees is. A 20-year time horizon, around 5% less in your pot. 25 years, around 15% less. Around 30 years, around 16% less. 35 years, around 25% less. That's a silent cost of fees. They snowball against you over time. So what's the practical part here? Even if you can't change your pension provider, you can almost always review your fund choice within the pension. Check the AMC on the funds available to you. Aim for the lowest cost option that still matches your risk profile. And the good news, most Irish providers let you switch funds at no cost. The message is simple. Every 1% you save on fees is more fuel for your compounding engine, and the more of your future wealth that's kept in your hands. So far, we've covered the math, savings rate, tax relief, and compounding. But here's the truth. None of it works without behavior and consistency. Most people don't miss their 1 million euro target because of the market. They miss it because of habit. So here are 3 common pitfalls. Number 1 is lifestyle creep. Your income rises, but your spending rises just as fast. If every pay increase goes straight into a bigger car or a bigger house, your savings engine never grows. Number 2 is a lack of automation. If you save what's left over at the end of the month, there's rarely anything left. The people who get to 1 million euro, they pay themselves first. They set contributions to go out automatically before the money even hits their current account. Number 3 is emotional investing. Markets always go up and down. The curve to 1 million euro is never smooth. If you panic and sell in a downturn, you reset the compounding clock. And that one mistake could cost you years. So what's the anecdote? Automate your savings. Review your portfolio several times per year, not per week. Stay invested through the dips because time in the market beats timing the market every single time. Building a 1 million euro pot isn't about genius or luck. It's about setting up repeatable systems and sticking with it for long enough to let compounding do the heavy lifting. Let's pull it all together. Here's the framework that gets you to 1 million euro. Number 1 is build your savings engine so that you are consistently creating surplus cash to invest. Number 2 is to maximize tax efficiency. So use pensions for relief and redirect surplus savings wisely. Number 3 is invest for growth and compounding. Let time and markets do the heavy lifting while keeping fees low. Number 4 is stay consistent. Avoid lifestyle creep, automate your savings, and stick with the plan through the ups and the downs. Follow these 4 steps and 1 million euro stops becoming a dream. It becomes a system you can actually follow. If you'd like to help to engineer your wealth to achieve financial freedom, I offer private strategy calls. We'll build a personalized model for your income, pensions, investments, and goals, and design a roadmap that shows you exactly how to get there. You'll find a link in the description below. And remember, building 1 million euro retirement is only the first step. The real question is, once you have it, how do you make it last? In my next video, I'll show you the bucket strategy I use with clients to stretch their retirement income further with more control, flexibility, and peace of mind.